yeah, I love yeah. I got that word in me. I keep that time, we moving that word like some birds in me. Never let go of that. We the devil like the flow. We walk alone with that. They bout some tanks with them. The Torah moon say yes and you ain't with them. We do it for the vibe and not for the bang figures. Say yes and this person you can't go. I got that word in me. I keep that time, we moving that word like some birds in me. Never let go of that. We the devil like the flow. We walk alone with that. They bout some tanks with them. The Torah moon say yes and you ain't with them. We do it for the vibe and not for the bang figures. Say yes and this person you can't go. Teaching them young ones the bus gun that said that them young girls that second them sellers just said that we shipping is real that might mean that we waking up people they dead in their sleep. They want all they eat but don't hear it no see. They lost in the sea. I came off their power, they hustle, they grab me, they stab you in your vest, and they love you, they slime me, don't try me, I'm ready for war. I keep that sword, lay down the spirit so low, raise it back off on the floor. The weapon is really in it, showing mercy, cause it's really feeling, but it's hated living, cause they wanna hit me. Know the Father's in me, exposing their way, showing they wicked who follow they with them. I'm handing the business, cause I gotta get it though. They die for the system, it's bad by the serpent. They want me stay dry like a surgeon, want blood on my hand, wanna see murder. They took it by the devil, but I do not search them. Step on the head of the snake, I might hurt them. Heard they been lurking, I'm searching. Beat don't play no. And they got right on the move when they come against the word like a K-Go. I got that word in me. I keep that time, we moving that word like some birds in me. Never let go of that. We the devil like the flow. We walk alone with that. They bout some tanks with them. The Torah moon say yes and you ain't with them. We do it for the vibes and not for the bang figures. Say yes and this person you can't go. I got that word in me. I keep that time, we moving that word like some birds in me. Never let go of that. We the devil like the flow. We walk alone with that. They bout some tanks with them. The Torah moon say yes and you ain't with them. We do it for the vibes and not for the bang figures. Say yes and this person you can't go. He be that glory, that spirit he pouring. We own it, that bread that from heaven. We got it, you want it all night up on the word. We be back up in the morning, got that water like a river keep flowing. We checked out the young ones cause they minds still growing. Show the mercy to the old, got a wise man wrong. Parable upon. They don't really know it can't turn my mic up. Better y'all rock. New Torah movie. Tell them tanks on the ground. When I was dead, the Father raised me up. He raised me up. And all my sins, he never gave me up. And all my wrongs, he gave me up. They heard them tanks up on the ground, so he had to rank them up. New Torah movie. I don't be through it. Going with that Torah, can we keep going in me? Hey, new Torah move. Yeah, it's good, I know he's great. Watch out what he got tricked. When it ain't nobody knows the thought, but they believe I'm watching. They hear the training angels, but they don't understand. They stuck up in their pride, everybody wanna be the man. I'm surrounded by pigeons, like my tribe in the pigeons. That's a lion, the Judah, just like flies on the ceiling. I'm waiting on the promises, them eyes on the million. Tempted by money and love, break out your feelings. I speak that spirit cause I breathe that. New Torah movement, they might become the freedom. They see the tanks on the ground, they holler freedom. When I was here, the Father raised me up, he raised me up. And all my sins, he never gave me up. And all my wrongs, he gave me up. They heard them tanks up on the ground, so he had to rank them up. New Torah movement, I don't be through it. With that Torah, they will keep going. Hey, new Torah move. I put my life up on the line like a bitch, no, they don't hear me, no. I get them hooked, I bet they feel me, though. They took my heart, I had the rhythm slow. Moving where the river go. No, this not the river go. I just make them feel the flow. but I don't think they really know. Got on my armor, got my sword, it's time to really go. They walking, yeah, man, this really won't make you lose your head if you really know. Sure about to really blow. Believe that, believe that. Get them my heart if you need that. Believe that, believe that. We never scared, you know what we at. When I was here, the Father raised me up, he raised me up. And all my sins, he never gave me up, no. And all my wrongs really gave me up. Nigga, them take up on that ground, so you had to rank them up. New Torah, new Torah, I don't enjoy it. Or with that Torah, Torah before it. Then we keep growing, then we up. Hey, new Torah, move.
Shalom, fam. I'd like to give all praise to the Heavenly Father. God, let know, yo, by the power of His word, I rock. Hallelujah, family. Peace and blessing to the family. Peace and blessing to my brother Elder Yara. Peace and blessing to my brother A9. Peace and blessing to my brother Moray Yahoo family. Peace and blessing to the Queen, Professor Lovely Lady. Peace and blessing to the Queen, Cassandra Miss. We're going to get into this, family. We're going to take a look at Kemet, or Egypt. What's the big surprise about it? Why everybody want to be Kemet, or Egypt? Peace and blessings, FS Drateo. Peace and blessings, Stephen Patrick. Let me get ready to share my screen, family. We're going to get into it. I'm going to drop the link in case my brother Elder Yara or any of my other brothers want to jump on the panel. And let's talk about it, family. Let's talk about Kemet and Egypt. Because we need to understand that it's founded in blood. We need to understand these modern day societies built themselves up off these ancient kingdoms and their wickedness. We're going to start off with the Egyptian Museum. We're going to deal with Narmer. Narmer was the first king of Egypt who peacefully, see what they teach? This is the trickery. You need to pay attention to these scholars and what they do. It's a word game. Who peacefully unified the country at the beginning of the first dynastic period, 3000 through 2650 BCE. Fam. He has also been cited as the last king of the Neolithic period, 4500 to 3000 BCE, who unified the country through conquest. Now, this is how crazy it is. Within the same paragraph, they put peacefully, and they also used conquest. A conquest is the act of taking control of a country or city through the use of force. So they're teaching you that he peacefully unified this country. But then they're telling you he unified it through conquest. Which one is it? We need to understand it's the same concept as America has been established. And they always getting on the Israelites talking about we come to take a land, killing the Canaanites or such. But before we even get to Egypt, don't even exist yet, fam. Kemet doesn't even exist yet, even at this time. when we're dealing with Narmer. This is what we need to understand. We go to world history. The scholar Douglas J. Brewer describes the work of Manetho's history was in essence a chronology of events arranged from the oldest to most recent, according to the reign of a particular king. So he did it by the reign of a particular king. Brewer continues on to describe the events which inspired Manetho to write his history. The origin of the dynastic chronological system dates back to the time of Alexander the Low. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his generals, one of whom Ptolemy received the richest prize, Egypt. So we need to understand you have Romans, these Greek Romans, family. Egypt belongs to them also. This is what we need to understand. Under his son Ptolemy II, Philadelphia, 280 BC, an Egyptian priest named Manetho wrote a condensed history of his native land for the new Greek rulers. Manetho, a native of Scythia in the Delta, had been educated in the old scribal traditions. Although Egypt's priests were famous for handing out tidbits of information, often intentionally incorrect. So they're saying the priests of Egypt, the information was intentionally incorrect when they were giving out information among the information they gave. To curious travelers, none had ever attempted to compile a complete history of Egypt, especially for foreigners. And unfortunately, Manetho's original manuscript has been lost. So his original manuscript has been lost. And the only record of his chronology is from the works of later historians. So they always complain about the Hebrews don't got the original. They use these documents and these scholars, and they didn't even have the original. It's lost. So they're going off of later historians, the works of those, such as Flavius Josephus, 37 to 100 CE. This has led to some controversy how accurate Manetho's chronology is. But even so, it is routinely consulted by scholars, archaeologists, and historians in charting the history of ancient Egypt. So they already got a controversy over it. They don't even know if it's accurate, but they still use it. The following discussion of the pre-dynastic period relies on archaeological finds over the past 200 years. So pre-dynastic period, which means before there was a Kemet, or before there ever was an Egypt. This is what pre-dynastic period is. There's no Kemet, no Egypt exists. And the findings over the past 200 years is what they're using. Let me read that again. The following discussion of the pre-dynastic period relies on archaeological finds over the past 200 years and their interpretation by archaeologists and scholars. So we're going off of the past 200 years of findings, how they are documented the pre-dynastic period. And it's their interpretation by archaeologists and scholars. So we need to understand. But it should be noted that historical sequences did not seamlessly follow each other, like chapters in a book, as the dates given for these cultures suggest. Cultures overlap. And according to some interpretations, different cultures in the pre-dynastic period can be seen as simply development of a single, hold on, let me move this family, of a single culture. So many of these cultures, they overlap in the pre-dynastic period leading up to the colonization of Kemet and then the colonization of Egypt. So a lot of the cultures were overlapping before they became a Kemet. That's what we need to understand. We go to the Britannica. The worship of Set, originally centered at Nup, Greek Umbus, near present-day Tuk on the western bank of the Nile River. Nup was its vast cemetery at nearby Naquata. See this family? This was a cemetery nearby Naquata. Was the principal pre-dynastic center in Upper Egypt. Now Egypt don't even exist, so you got to understand the word game by scholars. We're dealing with Naquata at this time. There's no Egypt. We're in pre-dynastic time, family. Use your smarts and your common sense. Don't let these scholars or any of these crazies fool you and trick you. We're dealing with Naquata, was the principal pre-dynastic center in Upper Egypt. They're talking about the landmass because there's no Egypt. It doesn't exist. Kemet doesn't exist yet. The town lost its preeminent position with the unification of Egypt about 3050 BCE. So we find out Naquata, the pre-dynastic. This isn't Egypt. This isn't Kemet. This predates that. They're telling you this in the same wording of the paragraph and letting you know that these towns, they lost their preeminent position by the colonization of Egypt. They put unification. We know it was colonized because I already went through this, family. They colonized it around 3050. They're going to continue to give you different dates because they don't have it accurate, which was carried out under kings whose capital was at Abydos. That's a later known title they would have been given, and whose royal god was Horus. So we have two different cultures with different towns before it's get colonization, family. We have the worship of Set, and then we have the others worshiping Horus. These different cultures. And don't let them fool you and trick you. The city was originally called Abju, which meaning the hill of the symbol of reliquary. The name Abydos comes from the Greek. See, the Abydos, that's what I was telling you, because that comes from Greeks. It wasn't called that. Who named the city after the port city of the same name located on the Hellespont? The modern Arabic name is El Araba, El Matfuna. So always remember these word games they play. That's why I have to show you that. See, you're getting these names, but then they'll go back and tell you these weren't the names. These are different cultures, different towns. These people lost their preeminent position during when they got colonized. The word Egypt is placed causing confusion. That's what you need to understand. When Egypt did not exist yet. Egypt comes later with the Greeks and Romans. That's when you get the culture or the civilization. Those colonizers. The first colonizers are Kemet. Remember that. All these people built these civilizations in blood. Why think they were brought and tore down? They were wicked, worshiping false idols and gods. We go to Britannica. We got the Naquata town. This is the town in Quina. Mahafuz, governor in Upper Egypt, right? So there's no Egypt. It doesn't exist. This place predates Egypt, predates Kemet. They're talking about the landmass. But it's how they fooling you if you don't understand that. So in the upper landmass of what they would be calling Egypt modern day, this town that used to exist there, Naquata, it lies on the west bank of the Nile River in the Great Bend of the river, opposite Ku, one of the oldest regions of Egypt. There's no Egypt. See how they keep fooling you? Egypt does not exist yet. It is the site of a Neolithic town and burial grounds of the pre-dynastic period. See, now they're telling you. And burial grounds of the pre-dynastic period, which means there's no Kemet, there's no Egypt, does not exist. Before 2925 BCE, family, remember this. It was the first excavated by the British archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie, and the cultures found are referred to by scholars as Ameratian, Naquata the First, and Gerzine, Naquata the Second. There was possibly a known province political organization centered there in pre-dynastic times, which means these times they just gave to the cultures, these cultures that's living there. And over these time periods, there is no Egypt, there is no Kemet until colonization. When Narmer's comes through murdering, raping, and robbing people, and then get Menes. And some scholars believe they're both the same person. Some scholars don't. But we see these are the towns and the places and the people that exist. There's no Egypt. There's no Kemet. And we see it says there was a possibly known province political organization centered there in pre-dynastic times with the god Seth, a tutelary deity. So we know that this is one of the gods that they would worship before the other civilization colonized them and merging these cultures together. Aquata the third. During the later Naquata the second period, the culture of Upper Egypt, so this region, not the it is no Egypt and no Kemet does not exist yet, family. 1 second, family. Okay, family. During the later Naquata the third period, the culture of the region is what we're dealing with of Upper Egypt, family. Dealing with the region, there's no Kemet, there's no Egypt. There's Naquata, or Aquata the third. There's no Kemet, there's no Egypt. Don't let them keep fooling you. Began to spread north until it had taken over the northern Maadai culture. You see that? They spread until they took over the northern Adai culture. No Kemet-Egypt. It doesn't exist yet. That's a different civilization. You can't take what land masses different cultures lived on and try to merge and make it all one civilization. That's what we need to understand here. The Nile Valley, particularly in the area close to the river, was dotted with a string of small villages and larger pseudo-urban centers. The inhabitants grew wheat and barley, flax, legumes, fruits such as watermelon and dates, and various vegetables. They herded cattle, goats, sheep, and pigs, and kept dogs as pets. So this stuff that they do in modern days, they get it from Egypt. They get it from before Egypt. They get it from the Quata. They get it from these people with no Kemet. They also continue to eat lots of fish. Naquata and her Aquanopolis were joined by Abydos. Remember, it was no Abydos, this is the Greek word. This is their word. This is their word. It was Naquata, so it's merged, it's joined with these. Later, the burial place of the first kings of Egypt. Later, it would be the kings of Kemet, not Egypt. Egypt will come later on. And the cult site of the god Osiris. This is what comes later. To form the three main centers of popularization. Nubia. We go to Nubia and Egypt. See how they put Nubia and Egypt. We know our Kemetic brothers, they know that Nubia is supposed to be the Kemites. The real Egyptians, or what you would say, but the real Egyptians would be Romans and Greeks, they come later on. The people who started civilization would be Kemet, they would say it's Nubia. But you see, these scholars, they separate that. So it's still trickery and foolishness they're doing. The Kemetic people would be right on that point, that Nubia is Kemet. But they're also splitting it up, telling you that it's not just Nubia. They're calling these other people Egypt when Egypt didn't exist yet. These other culture with Nubia started Kemet. We're going to find that out. But Nubia and ancient Egypt, because it's the word they're using, which didn't exist yet, had periods of both peace and war. It is believed, based on rock art, that Nubian rulers and early Egyptian pharaohs used similar royal symbols. There was often peaceful culture exchange and cooperation, and marriages between the two did occur. Egyptians did, however, conquer Nubia territory at various times. So they're saying that these other people, they keep calling it Egypt. Remember, Egypt doesn't exist. That name didn't even exist yet. And they conquered Nubia at various times. Nubians conquered Egypt in the 25th dynasty. Egyptians called the Nubian region Tasseti, which means the land of the bow, a reference to Nubian archery skill. Around 3500 BCE, the A group of Nubians, see, they put the A group of Nubians, traded gold, copper tools, face, stone, vessels, pots, and more. Egyptians' unification in 3300 BCE may have been helped along by Nubian culture, which was conquered by Upper Egypt. There's no Egypt. But now they're telling you, they know that the A group of Nubians started the Kemetic culture, because we're going to give you the true scholarship. These scholars are foolishness. They're nonsense. All these scholars y'all put up on high levels, they always tricking you. You just don't know it. And they're not as smart as you think they are. No one's smarter than the Most High. They're telling you these two groups traded gold, copper tools, five stone vessels. This other group wasn't called Egypt or Egyptian. So this is the foolishness they're playing with you. Then they say Egyptian unification. You mean Kemetic unification? And they put in 3300 BC, which is another random date they gave, because they're going to keep giving you different dates. May have been helped along by Nubian culture, which we know for fact Nubian started the Kemetic culture, which was conquered by Upper Egypt, is that region, because there's no Upper Egypt. Nubia was first mentioned by ancient Egyptian trading accounts in 2300 BCE. Look, now they're telling you Nubia was first mentioned by ancient Egyptian trading accounts in 2300 BCE, which Nubia is the Kemetic, who started the Kemetic culture, along with the Armorician culture and these other cultures when they all started merging. And during the colonization era. So they keep counting out the Nubians. This is how you got to watch these scholars. First, they told you they helped start it, the A group of Nubians, started that culture with Egyptians, which no such thing of Egyptians existed. So you got to watch their foolishness. Now they tell you Nubia is mentioned in 2300 BCE, which we know the kingdom they just said started up in 3300. See, they don't want you to know. Nubia was a gateway to the riches of Africa. And goods like gold, incense, ebony, copper, ivory, animals flowed through it. But the sixth dynasty knew it was fractured by a group of small kingdoms. The population called C group may have been made up of Saharan nomads. See, now they're giving you the C group. Go to the Cleopatra Narmer. 3150 through 2613 BCE. He came in power after King Scorpion. He came into power after King Scorpion. That's what they're telling you. The first king of a united Egypt. Remember, it's a united Kemet after colonization. After he conquered the north. You see, now they're telling you what happened. Colonization. After he conquered the north, which is lower, the lower region of what they're calling modern Egypt. Because there was no Egypt, it didn't exist till the Greeks come in calling it Egypt. So he conquered the lower region of Kemet, that landmass. Narmer from southern, he's from southern, upper, the region of what they're calling Egypt. It's portrayed as victorious on the famous Narmer palette in the Egyptian Museum and the founder in the first dynasty of the Old Kingdom. So they're telling you he's the founder of the first dynasty in the Old Kingdom. He is telling he the one come through colonization, killing, murdering people, taking the lands, merging them, unifying through what? Conquering, killing, raping, robbing. Remember they said he remember I first brought up he peacefully, and then they tell you it was by conquest. Pay attention to the foolishness. There was no peace until he didn't brainwash everybody. One second, family. Okay. Narmer Palette in the Egyptian Museum and the founder of the first dynasty of the Old Kingdom in ancient Egyptian time. King Narmer built a new capital on the dividing line between Lower and Upper Egypt, these regions. He called his capital city Memphis. One called that, these Greeks, just the Greek words. And he created the double crown, white crowns, and red crown. In the opinion of many Egyptologists, the long history of unified ancient Egypt could have begun with the reign of King Narmer. So they're saying it could have begun with the reign of King Narmer, the possible founder of the first dynasty. See, these scholars, they're not even sure. But for some reason, these Egyptobots and Kemetic, they sure. The scholars not even sure. Who ruled the territory at the end of the 4th millennium BC, approximately between 3185 and 3125 BC. In any case, both the chronology and the figure of Narmer himself is disputed and is confused with that of other rulers who preceded him, such as the famous Scorpion King, or who succeeded him, as in the case of King Aha. Perhaps some explanation can throw us one of the oldest works of art in the Egyptian world, the Narmer palette, deposited in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Now you're gonna see different scholars saying Narmer and Me's the same person. Then they're gonna say Me's is Scorpion King. See, you gotta know how the scholars work and know that none of them even agree. They only agree on certain points. They all give you their own interpretations. A lot of these sources, I leave them to the side. Y'all can see them. That's why I'm not reading everything. Because some of these, like the Cleopatra Egypt Tours information. Founder and chairman Muhammad A. Abdul El Enin. And it's managers that are qualified Egyptologists themselves with over 15 years experience in the field. And I just repeat some sources, keep giving you the same narrative. Since the earliest times, the Nile Valley has been divided into the very fertile delta in the north and the Nile Valley in the south. For a long time, scattered villages ruled their nearby surroundings, providing protection against intruders. But they were continuously at odds with their neighbors. That changed around 3000 BC, when the southern king Narmer established himself as the undisputed ruler of the south by dominating the smaller neighbors. So he's conquering these smaller towns. Having amassed a large army, he then conquered the north, uniting the two parts. Remember, this unification is nothing peaceful and good. It's all about conquering, killing, raping, and robbing these people. That's what it's about. But they portray it as a unified. That's why they use the word unified. Just saying he colonized and conquered. Conquered and colonized. They're not saying this to you because they don't want you to know that's what's going on in modern time. But he conquered the north, uniting the two parts into one kingdom, and started building the foundation with a centralized administration. This probably included the founding of larger cities instead of villages, created peace and prosperity. See, it created peace and prosperity on a never before seen scale. Enjoying the stability, people all over the land began to identify as one people, united under one king. Now, this narrative sound familiar. That's why I got these pictures at the bottom, family. Going on here. It said it said this probably included the founding of larger cities instead of villages and created peace and prosperity on a never before seen scale. And to the right, this is what they would be calling peace and prosperity on a never before seen scale. Because that ain't what the people was going through. The people was being enslaved, murdered, killed, and then over a period of time, I've seen the same thing happen in America. People become to be unified under the country, call themselves Americans or Kmets, or they start calling themselves Cometians. They have a choice, so the children raised into it. Now it's peaceful and unified under this circumstance. The Australian Museum, we see 2686 through 2181 BCE. They're documenting this as the Old Kingdom. So they're not even documenting the years before prior to be the Old Kingdom. Dynasty 3 through 6. We see the 6th dynasty, there was a collapse of the central government. Leads to local art styles developing. First images and forms of art that endured for 3,000 years. It endured for 3,000 years. Painting develops. Large numbers of pyramids constructed. 4th dynasty. Great Sphinx and Great Pyramids built at Giza. They placed this in the 4th dynasty. 2181. 2125 BCE. First intermediate period. Egypt splits into 2 smaller states, ruled by Memphis in the north and Thebes in the south. This civil disorder lasts for 150 years. 1 second, family. So we see we have in the 2181 through 2125 BCE, first intermediate period. We see Egypt splits into 2 smaller states because there's people coming into the land, conquering, taking over, changing rules, laws. Ruled by Memphis in the north and Thebes in the south. That's what the Greeks are later on calling it through the regions because that's what they did. These places not originally called these at the times of the events. The civil disorder lasts for 150 years, family. They call it civil disorder. Going through history, you find out people that's outsiders come in. Which remember they're colonized from the beginning, and all these people are not even the same people from the jump. So that's why you start having these civil rights and these wars going along through the kingdom. It's starting to reflect something. Because some of the people don't want to be there, and then some of the outsiders coming in to take over. Because these people are not one people. They've been colonized into one kingdom. 21 through 25, 1650 BC, Middle Kingdom. Dynasties 11 through 13, historic events. Mentuhotep reunites Egypt. So now we have a reunification at this time because they were split up and separate. These people ain't been ruling for 3,000 years when they've been constantly getting conquered, taken over, civil wars and events, because all these people are not even the same races of people. It's different peoples in there. It's a colonization of different cultures and countries that will merge together. So he reunites these regions. First obelisk erected at Heliopolis by Senusret I. As you see, they start bringing up new guys, different guys starting to appear because you have different people that came in conquering and bringing in new information before these places even got reunited. 11th dynasty god Amon-Ra rises to prominence and becomes a center of cult at Thebes. You're going to see this stuff because different people kept coming in, different thoughts, different religions were brought into this place. 1650 through 1550 BCE, second intermediate period. Egypt falls to Near Eastern rulers. So we see the lie about Egypt ruling 3,000 years, that's false. That region has been taken over for 3,000 years. And people been ruling from there. But the point is the outsiders been ruling their own kingdoms before they come in and even start taking over parts of Egypt to rule it. Before they even put out. And they're put out by different races, multiracial difference of people, because all these people in Egypt not even the same people from the jump of it first being established. Hyksos, seized power of the north, 11th dynasty. 11 dynasties, Egypt unified again. You see this? So now these regions are getting unified again in certain dynasties. Now what that means? There was new gods, more information, more religions brought in. Because there were different conquerors over and over. 1550 through 1069 BCE. New kingdom, dynasties 18 to 20. Let's go down. 1470 BCE, it says rule of the first female pharaoh, Hatshepsut. We got 1350, Akhenaten rules and attempts to introduce the worship of a single god. Over and over, I don't know how they complain about the scriptures in the Bible, but throughout this history, these people are making up gods, bringing in other gods from different cultures, different thoughts that was colonized or brought in from Mesopotamia. Nothing that gonna save you, bring you no salvation. Nothing, stuff that they're making up and just bringing in over and over. Stuff people just creating off their own beliefs. I'm gonna jump down to 1069 through 664 BCE. Pay attention, family. It says third intermediate period. Every time you see that, that means this place was conquered. There's new rulers. But watch this. Egypt again falls under Nubian and Libyan rule. Now they say Egypt falls back under these people rule. These are the original Kemites. It falls back under the rule of the original Kemites in 1069 through 664 BCE. So who in the world are all these people ruling Egypt through these hundreds of years, family? 1,000 years. Who all these other people? The Nubians started it. They're the original Kemetic people. That's why I read that. And they made up these other Egyptian people, which it wasn't. It was the quad of the Imeretian cultures. There was no such thing of Egyptians then. Nubians started Kemet, but these other cultures around with them. This is what we see, family. But we see they didn't even come back into power until 1069. So we know that the Kemet was not ruling this entire time over these thousands of years. They were living there among these other rulers and conquerors. These are the original Kemites. These people didn't come back in, and they're calling it third intermediate period because they're already kicking these people out from being the original people, which these are the original Kemites. They kicking them out and saying that Egypt falls again under their rule and Libyan rule, trying to make it like some other people were the Egyptians, which is false. But there were other cultures like that towards the Quad. So I brought it up. Admiration. Let me go back up, read a few on them, family, so you can understand. Referred to by scholars as Amoreshan, that's the Nequata the first, and the Gerizim was Nequata the second. There's a possible a known province political organization centered there. And that's pre-dynastic time, but it's showing that these people, you got an Amoreshan culture, and Nequata the first and the Gerizim culture, Nequata the second, you even had Nequata the third, Aquata the third. And they took over the northern Madai culture. You see this, family? So you got these different cultures here in that time period. This is what we need to understand. These different cultures are living there. They helped start Kemet with the Nubians. And that's some of those people who they're probably just throwing the title of Egyptian on when there's not such thing of an Egyptian yet. But we see that the original Kemites didn't even rule Egypt for the few thousand years. Some other whole different types of people. Even we ruled, the Hebrews. We ruled it. This was crazy. All different people ruled this place or ruled from there. But this wasn't even a royal ruling kingdom because these people had their own kingdoms when they come in to take over Kemet because their kingdoms were powerful. I think they was taking over this place. It's crazy, ain't it? They're supposed to be the greatest one for 3,000 years, but they weren't. People kept conquering this place for 3,000 years. So we see how these are the peoples we're seeing throughout the time period. We see the bottom left is AI picture, and the top is an AI picture. We see Akhenaten, look, he's a controversial historical figure, mostly for his strange and drononymous depictions in sculpture, including traditionally female body proportions. So Akhenaten, he's feminine. Female body proportions, exaggerated facial features, and an elongated head. This ain't nobody you want to follow. We know the history, know who all some people even try to teach this Moses, but it ain't. This guy depicted as effeminate. It's not masculine. who they're betraying. That's like Obama, effeminate. Betraying her with female parts, family. We need to understand that. That's people they follow. Look, that's AI. The top right is AI. Bottom right here, this AI. So we know what the culture look like, but we know the Kemites like to play the trick, putting up other pictures that they aren't Israelites. But we see what the AI give us. These two. Now you got these different peoples throughout this time period ruling, because we're still in this land throughout these time periods ruling. But for some reason, the Nubians ain't even in the Kemites, not even in their own land ruling the land. They're not even ruling the kingdom. They're just living among people, among the kingdom and other places. They didn't come back until 1069. Kemet. But they say Nubia, Egypt, and Nubia. This is what they put in Egypt and Nubia. So he basically was saying the aquatic cultures and the Nubian cultures. That's what they're saying, family. But this is what they're portraying as Egypt and Nubia. Not a such thing of Egypt at the time, but Egypt and Nubia. Until later on, when the Greeks and Romans come in calling it Egypt, then you get an Egypt. And this is what I'm talking about, family. By Peter Van Menig. When Alexander the Low conquered Egypt in 332 BC. Look, it's conquered once again. This is when he conquered. This is when Alexander conquered it. What it is? 332 BC. And remember, this is Egypt now. When he took a hold of it, this became Egypt. It's no longer Kemet, no longer. Kemet died when the Nubians first got put out the land. So the land that they're hiding the ghost name of the land throughout all them years until they come back in when Nubians enter the land again. It's a ghost land. And then you hear of Egypt because these people come in. They conquer it. This place is Egypt. Because who conquered Alexander? He could not know that the Greek language he introduced into this ancient civilization was to dominate it for more than 1,000 years. He didn't know that until he knew that. He knew what he was doing. Until well after the Arab invasion of Egypt in AD 640 through 642. Greek was used for official documents rather than the indigenous language. You see that, family? It was using Greek for the documents instead of the indigenous language. Egyptian, which was used for religious texts and private documents, written in hieratic, a Demotic script, and from the 3rd century AD onwards, with the aid of the Greek alphabet. You understand? These people put this stuff together. The last mentioned combination of an indigenous language and a foreign script is called Coptic. The Coptic text is a modern drum, and it's also available in translation. The Ptolemaic period lasted from 323 to 30 BC. That's Egypt. It is called Ptolemaic after the names of the kings of Egypt at the time, family. And pay attention. See how they switch it up because the Arabs come in 640 through 642 when they invaded. But the place is called Egypt all the way to the Greeks get up out of it. Then they say, oh, it's not Egypt no more. Ptolemy the first, we go down what? Usually married to either Anaxagoras, Bernice, or Cleopatra. The Ptolemies were of Greek Macedonian descent, just like Alexander the Great, the Low. The Roman period, sometimes divided into a Roman and Byzantine section, lasted from 30 BC to AD 640 to 642. See that, family? The Ptolemies were of Greek Macedonian descent, just like Alexander of the Roman period, sometimes divided into a Roman and Byzantine section. See, that only lasted from 30 BC to AD 640 because they were calling themselves the Egyptians. When they came and took over, this is what we need to understand. How they changed the names and the wording up because they believed themselves to be what is Egypt because they came up with Egypt. Kemet was there. They were ruling this certain region. They got conquered. Same thing we see in the Americas. We can't say that the Native American Indians were ruling 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, or 2,000 years, whatever you want to put. Because, and then you add on the United States culture of it after they come in and conquer, saying, yeah, this paper been ruling for hundreds and hundreds of years, over thousands of years. When it's not even the original cultures, it's whole different colonizations, different civilization that merged in some of old religious beliefs of the pre-culture. The dynastic period started with the reign of Egypt's first king. See, that's a dynastic period. That's before there's an Egypt, before there's a Kemet. Narmer in approximately 3100 BC ended with the death of Cleopatra. In 30 BC, you see where they ended at, family? They end this ruling with Cleopatra. So I'm telling you, they Alexander, the Greeks and all them, they are part of the Egypt. That's what they're saying. This is their Egypt. Anywhere around, they stopped the culture at them, at Cleopatra, in 30 BCE. That's why they're documented that long. After all these different conquerors come in and taking over this land, they're trying to merge and say this been one civilization ruling for 3,000 years, which is totally false and incorrect. This place been being conquered and tore down and built up over 3,000 years from outsiders with their own kingdoms. This place couldn't be so great. You have other kingdoms coming in, tearing it apart, learning from it, taking from it. But you're going to find out this place didn't even originate most of the stuff from it. But you got to remember that, family. You got it. That's why a lot of these Kemites, they know it. They got to include all these Greeks because they're part of what the culture they're calling Egypt. They stop it in 30 BCE, which is a joke when you know the history. You know, it's all false. These scholars are just playing games with you because they don't show us a place of blood, murder. That's because they don't want you to know it's a place of murder, grape robbery. For thousands of years, they've been doing it. This place full of slavery. We know that. We was being enslaved there. We ruled there. Let me go down. During this long period, there were times of strong centralized rule and periods of much weaker, divided rule. But basically, Egypt remained one independent land. You see this? So they're trying to document. See how they just lied to you? Of course, the land, it didn't get blown up and ripped up by nuclear weapons. The land, of course, is together. But the people were never one people. They were always divided, always being conquered, tore apart, ripped up, brought down. Used for the resources, used for a center of power because the region it was in. They were to split between both regions, going out of Africa, coming into Africa. Kmt-Egypt was a landmass, a region. It was not a ruling kingdom. That's what you need to understand. They held rule as a royal empire by indigenous and foreign rulers. You see that? The region and the landmass held rule by all types of people. There was no one people. Remember I showed you the Kemites, the Nubians, they were put up out the land and come back to thousands of years later being in power of the land. They don't want to teach you that because they take all these other people's histories in the middle of the time, acting like they're ruling. They even know we ruled the place. So how they gonna keep saying they ruled 3,000 years, which is false? Oh, now Kemet first become a kingdom, family, in 2900 BCE. That's when you get Kemet. This is when Kemet shows up. It showed up in 2900 BC. After the towns were conquered, they then submitted locals under one rule, government. We go to Britannica. Medes flourished 2900 BC, was the legendary first king of unified Egypt. See that? They put Medes as the unified king. Some people believed he was Norman. Some scholars said no. Who, according to tradition, joined upper and lower regions, the landmass of Kemet. There's no Egypt. When he called Kemet until he conquered it, and they named it Kemet. And a single centralized monarchy and established ancient Kemet's first dynasty. They put Egypt that didn't exist. Manetho, let me go back up. A 3rd century BCE historian called him Medes. The 5th century BCE Greek historian Herodotus referred to him as men, and 2 native king lists of the 19th dynasty. Remember the Greeks giving y'all the history of these people. 13th century BCE called him Mene. Modern scholars have inconveniently identified the legendary Medes with one or more of the archaic Egyptian kings, bearing the name Scorpion, Narmer, and Aha. See, some of them believe him to be Narmer or Aha, or the Scorpion King. Remember, I read one that said Narmer wasn't the Scorpion King. One of them say he is. See, these scholars are confused. The Narmer Palette, Hierapolis, beginning of the first dynasty, 2900 BCE. This is when you get Kemet. It's been conquered now. Now you get Kemet. You get Kemet. They need to stop trying to steal other people's cultures and the quieter cultures And some of the people weren't even African. If you go back to history, some of them were, and some of them weren't who they think they were. See, they don't even know. They didn't do their study. Some of them like Arabs. They didn't even know that. There was generally a high level of trade. Watch this, family. There were generally a high level of trade between ancient Egypt. It's talking about Kemet. There's no Egypt. Not even Kemet yet. Pay attention, family. And the Near East throughout the pre-dynastic period of Egypt. See, there's no Egypt. Once they just told you it's the pre-dynastic period, now they talking about the Nequata. They're literally going to tell you that. See, if you don't understand what you're reading, you're going to think this is Egypt or Kemet. So it tells you there was generally a high level of trade between ancient Kemet. They put Egypt, and this is no Kemet. Egypt don't exist yet. And the Near East throughout the pre-dynastic periods of Egypt. There's no Egypt. There's no Kemet. They're talking about the landmass right now. Watch what they tell you. During the Nequata the second. Oh, so it's not Kemet or Egypt. It's Nequata. It's this culture. See how if you didn't know that, you're fooled because it's literally telling you now who it is. They told you it's pre-dynastic period of Egypt, which means it's not even connected to Egypt. These people get conquered. Some of this stuff amalgamates into what we call Kemet. During the Nequata the second, 3600 to 3350 BCE. Remember, family, Egypt didn't start at Kemet didn't start at 2900 BCE after the colonization. They had this documented. Now we see the Nequata is ruling 3600 in the region or towns, 3600 to 3350 BC. And Nequata the third, 3350 through 2950 BCE. Why? Because they get colonized by Lebanese. These were contemporary with the late Europe, 3600 to 3100 BCE, and Jimdet and Sar, 3100 through 2900 BCE. Periods in Mesopotamia. So these are going on at the same time. Pay attention, family. Pay attention. We don't even have Kemet or Egypt yet. We got the Nequata. And the Nequata is dealing with the people of Mesopotamia. The main period of cultural influence, particularly consisting in the transfer of Mesopotamian imagery, symbols, and technology to Egypt, to Kemet, to that region. And it's not even them, it's the Nequata. The Mesopotamians is doing trade to the Nequata. Why? They just told you it was Nequata people. See how if you don't know, if you ain't paying attention, got no common sense, you're going to think it's Kemet or Egypt. No, they just told you we're dealing with the Nequata people. And these people are dealing with the people in Mesopotamia period. Let me go back and fix that, family. Give me a second. So we see, family, that we have the people of the Nequata. They're dealing with the people of Mesopotamia. And we're dealing with 3600 to 3100 BCE. And we're dealing with 3100 through 2900 BCE. Periods in Mesopotamia. The main period of cultural influence, particularly consisting in the transfer of Mesopotamian imagery, symbols, and technology to this region of who? The Nequata people. They put Egypt false. It ain't even Kemet because they just told us we're dealing with the Nequata people. See, you gotta have common sense, family. You gotta use the spirit of the Most High to know these scholars are nothing but a piece of trash too, family. So we see that the Mesopotamia is transferring technology to the people of the Nequata before Kemet or Egypt ever exists. These people are learning from the Mesopotamians, the same region we come from after the flood, but the same region our people are coming from. But we see this transfer of technology, imagery, symbols. Before Kemet gets their writing system or whatever, all this stuff they get, we see that Mesopotamia has traded this stuff and gave it to the Naqada people. For 250 years, during the Naqada, the second dynasty, two dynasty one periods of Kemet family, we find out nobody ain't been learning all this stuff from Kemet-Egypt. Kemet-Egypt got their stuff from Mesopotamia because they got it from the Naqada culture that was colonized through Narmertum. They merged Horus and Set, those guys, because those different cultures were worshiping different gods, living in those regions of what they're calling now Upper and Lower Egypt. So the Naqada was learning and getting imagery, symbols, and technology from Mesopotamia for 250 years. That lasted all the way up to from the Naqada second period to Dynasty one period. So we know who Egypt got this, who Kemet got their stuff from before they started colonizing everybody. We got Mesopotamian king as master of animals on the top of the handle. This work of art both shows the influence of Mesopotamia on Egypt at the early date, an example of ancient Egypt-Mesopotamian relations, and the state of Mesopotamia royal iconography during the Uruk period, which I just read up here. It's been going on for 250 years. They've been dealing with Naqada. That's how Kemet started to learn this stuff after colonization of the two regions. They already learned from Mesopotamia. They didn't start this stuff. You go to British Museum. Writing in Egypt was invented around 3250 BC. To organize the distribution and storage of goods, and society became more complex. The oldest Egyptian text at the British Museum is on jar. Figure 1 mentions both accounts from Upper Egypt and the same Kmt-Egypt, who ruled there just before the unification. So it's not called Egypt because it's before the colonization family when they were dealing with Mesopotamia. Egypt's regions into one state. So, and the name Kmt-Egypt, who ruled there just before the unification of Egypt's regions into one state. So it's saying before these towns and countries of these different cultures, before they get colonized into one kingdom, this is where they found this jar at. This before Kemet. It was crazy, family, because when you actually read this stuff, you find out Kemet is a lie. The ceramic jar with inscription in black ink, Abydos, Egypt, which it wasn't Abydos because they already told you this is Greek. Around 3100 BC, so we're not dealing with the Greek language at that time. So now they're telling you around 3100 BC. We find out that's after they've been dealing with Mesopotamia. Before Kemet begins, we go to world history. The Uruk period saw the establishment of trade with Egypt during that region's Gerasian period. Remember, it's not Egypt or Kemet, it's in the Naqada. So during Egypt's region, they're talking about the landmass, because that's Naqada. Gerasian period, also known as Naqada the second period. See, they telling you, but they keep telling you Egypt. If you ain't really thinking, then you don't know. You're fooled. Just like many of these guys don't understand what they've been teaching or know. It's foolishness. It ain't Kemet, it's Naqada we're dealing with here. 3500 to 3200 BCE. We see this trade been going on from Uruk to Naqada. So you wonder how you got this jar, how they learned this writing system that popped up? Because they learned it from Mesopotamia. You know how they learned all this stuff? Mesopotamia, from the Asiatic Negroes that was over there. Remember, some of the Nubians, they even come from that area. Some of them come from Mesopotamia also. See, they don't understand. When you actually put the biblical narrative in the right dating system, you understand that. Before many of them migrated into this region and conquered it, they were over there first. That's why you got a Kush over there also. Mesopotamian ceramics from Sumer, which would have come from cities including Eridu, Nippur, and Uruk, dated to 3500 BCE, have been excavated in Egypt. So they excavated modern Egypt in the times they've been excavating it. They said, man, we got stuff from Mesopotamia. Dates back to 3500 BCE. Now, you know Egypt didn't come up with this stuff because I read to you, they've been getting this stuff from Mesopotamia over 250 years. Who? The Naqada. Before Kemet starts their colonization process and conquers both regions. It includes ceramic cylinder seals, lapis lazuli pendants, evidence for the wealth generated by the Sumerian cities through trade is suggested by their expansion during this period, especially Uruk, which established several settlements beyond its initial boundaries at important junctions on trade routes. They always say we stole for Kemet, this, that. Kemet got their information from the region we came from after the flood, family. So a lot of people don't even know that. And before the flood, a lot of Asiatic Negroes are already there. If you do your history, your study. We go to the Glencairn Museum. In the pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom, which first appeared on the interiors of the pyramids it first appeared, family. These pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom first appears of the interior of the pyramids of the kings of the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, 2500 through 2350 BCE. See how they play the game? Oh, Moses' writings and these such prophet writings come such and such years later. Well, Kemet's supposed to start at 2900 BCE. We got 400 years later. They finally getting writings on the wall. This is what he dating us to. We learned that the Egyptians regarded the sky as a dwelling place of their gods and a location connected to the afterlife, just as their daily life depended upon the Nile River. Egyptians envisioned the heavenly realm as a landscape that divine beings navigated in sacred boats. We go down, the sun god Re was paramount important to the ancient Egyptians, and the sun's daily passage from east to west and its daily rising and setting served as a metaphor for the cycle of life, from birth to adulthood to death to rebirth. The omnipresent sun in what was largely a desert environment may also explain the early Egyptians' Kemet's interest in solar concept. At dusk, the sun god proceeded into the underworld, the Duat. Then we get New Kingdom funerary text from 1292 through 1075 BCE. Remember, I done showed you this place been conquered and taken over by different people already. So every time you get these new documents, it's been different people bringing this stuff in here. It's not even original. This is New Kingdom funerary text. And this comes in 1292 through 1075. You see, family? This text started before Nubians even come back in the land, and the Nubians are back in the land. And the associated images found on the walls of royal tombs record his nighttime journey. So these guys, they just creating over the years coming. People bringing these new guys in, new names from their own cultures and civilization. And then many of them are already taken from Sumer and renamed. So they can't argue about the Bible. Such documents come years later. This stuff came almost 2,000 years later from when the place started. Now they got text. Britannica. Egyptian religious beliefs and practices were closely integrated. You see this? Religious beliefs and practices were closely integrated into Egyptian society of the historical period from 3000. That's the colonization era, family, as I showed you. This stuff got integrated because these towns and stuff are getting colonized. Now you got Horus, Seth, you got these different guys from different peoples, different cultures merging together. You got different other people moving in, their land getting conquered because they're all in parts of these regions of what they call in Lower and Upper Egypt. Although there were probably many survivals from prehistory, these may be relatively unimportant for understanding later times because the transformation that established the Egyptian state created a new context for religion. So they say after they colonized and took everybody else's gods, started mingling them together, they created a new religious state, people. They created a new context for religion. They did the same thing Nimrod was doing. Why? Because these are Nimrod relatives. They came over there starting this place. If you do your right dating of history. Many of them related to him. He started bringing in more of these guys when he started taking over land stuff. You wonder how parts of Egypt getting taken over? Some of these people related to Nimrod. Some of these people related to the Syrians. You can keep going all around the board if you do your history. And then we also came into this place. Around the 1900s. Some may put us 1800s, during the 1900 BC. But during its more than 3,000 years of development, this place was being developed for more than 3,000 years. They're talking about rule. How they ain't ruled for 3,000 years. They were being developed, conquered, destroyed, built back up for 3,000 years. Egyptian religion underwent significant changes of emphasis and practice. See, over all these years, different conquerors, colonizers, different people coming in. This place just significantly changed the religions, documents, gods. But in all periods, religion had a clear consistency in character and style. They say, yeah, all this stuff been changing over the time, but it still got a clear consistency in character and style. like that's supposed to help. This stuff is nonsense. They have a clear consistency in character and style of different guys and different people bringing in different cultures. Because it's similar like America. It's like they voting. A lot of these people seem like they're getting voted in and ruling over the land. Some of these people didn't even come in and have to kill the country. They came in and got voted in as a governor or a president over lands. That's what some of these people did. That's how you get this system of America. Some of this stuff they being voted in. That's what some of them were doing. That's why the land was being torn ripped apart. That's how we let the Syrians get in on us. They just come in like that. You voted people into different governments and get in different positions. They took over the place. Then they started killing, bringing in weapons, sword. They just needed a particular part of that government. And then you had the other people coming in making war because they seen the place getting weak. People said, hey, let's go make war and take over. This is in their history. It is inappropriate to define religion narrowly as consisting only in the cult of the gods and in human piety, religious behavior encompass contact with the dead. See, this is part of their religion. Over the period of years, they're gonna start contacting the dead. They started practices such as divinization and oracles and magic, which mostly exploited divine instruments and associations. So this is what their religion encompassed. It had this stuff all in it. Because different people kept bringing this crazy stuff in. The University of Chicago Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, West Asia and North Africa. The pyramid texts were a corpus of mortuary rituals and other religious texts carved on the walls of the royal pyramids of the late Old Kingdom. Let me read that again. The University of Chicago Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, West Asia and North Africa. The pyramid texts were a corpus of mortuary rituals and other religious texts carved on the walls of the royal pyramids of the late Old Kingdom. It's the late part of the Old Kingdom, family. 2375 through 2185. Almost 600-700 years later, after the place even established, they get these texts on the wall. Why? Because this place been coming in with different races of people, civilizations, bringing stuff in. Now they want to put stuff on the wall and people getting killed and dying. They're learning from different people. Mesopotamia already done something to most of the imagery and artwork and technology. They represent the oldest religious literature in the world and form of the foundation of the rich Egyptian mortuary traditions of the later coffin texts and Book of the Dead. See, the coffin text, Book of the Dead come later because they started merging stuff together, coming up with their own little scripts. Remember the Greeks when I was over this stuff. You got to remember that. Australia Museum. Initially, funerary texts were only made available to royals. These are today known as the pyramid texts because they were found written on the walls of chambers inside the Old Kingdom pyramid. These texts were revised. You know what they did? Like they say, the most of the Bibles, they revised versions. These texts were revised at the start of the Middle Kingdom. So they revised these texts. Took stuff out, added stuff to. It wasn't based on no true gods. A lot of stuff was based on magic, witchcraft, voodoo, deities, blood, rituals. About 2100 BCE, so that the officials and nobles were also allowed to use them. So around this time, officials and nobles are allowed to use them. This is referred to as a democratization of the afterlife. This set of texts became known as the coffin text. So it became known as the coffin text when they put this stuff together for other people to use. After they revised these things. Because they were mostly written on coffins. It's written on dead people. It's on the coffins, family. Spells, magic, rituals. Eventually, at the start of the New Kingdom, about 1500 BCE, a funerary text was made available to the general population of Egypt. So the government decided, hey, we'll let all these other people be able to have a text that they can put on their coffin. This text is known today as the Book of the Dead. So now you got their Book of the Dead, another revised book by these people before they put it out to the general public. We go to the Britannica, coffin text, collection of ancient Egyptian funerary texts consisting of spells or magic. That's what the coffin text is. They consist of spells or magic formulas painted on the burial coffin of the first intermediate period, 2100 to 30 through 1938 BCE. Through the history, these so many different cultures in there. Nubians don't come back in 1069 to take rule. In the Middle Kingdom, 1938 BC to 1630 BCE, the coffin text combined with the pyramid text from which they were derived were the primary source of the Book of the Dead. So they put these things together, and that was the primary source of the Book of the Dead, which was in the prominent use during the New Kingdom and late period. These three collections represent the most extensive body of Egyptian religious literature available to modern scholars. So we see how they get their texts and stuff put together, family. That was my last slide, family. And as you understand, Kmt-Egypt built, founded in blood. Norma conquers, colonized, the Quada culture, the Admiration people. Check the chat, family. Peace and blessings, Queen, Professor, lovely lady. Peace and blessings, brother Salaya Ben Yah. Peace and blessings, brother Yerma Yahoo. I dropped the link if anybody want to come in, add anything to it, family, before we close out. Peace and blessings to my brother Elder Yara. But we see that Kmt-Egypt is a joke when they try to steal all these cultures. They're stealing pre-dynastic period cultures. Keep using the word Egypt. Don't come in until the Greeks of Alexander. They're the ones that title displaced Egypt. This place been conquered for over 1,000 years by different cultures. This place been developed for 3,000 years. They ain't been ruling for 3,000 years. If they've been ruling for 3,000 years, you wouldn't have outside kingdoms coming in taking it over and ruling. Why they have their own lands? They come in and taking over parts of this land. We ruled in the land. We know how we got in. We was allowed in, lived among the people. Then the Syrians come in. Some call them the Hyksos. They come in. Some called us the Hyksos because, I mean, foreigners. And cattle herders. That's why when you read the scripture, it tells you, because Joseph, he the one that had Egypt unified in a particular way. Because people, it was a time of famine. People couldn't afford the lands. He was the man over the money. He was ruling Egypt under Pharaoh. He bought the lands for Pharaoh, giving Pharaoh family power over multiple lands. Well, it was able to be even unified in certain ways. That's why throughout them time periods, you can see where it would get unified. Then it splits back up because you got civil war fights. You got different cultures living there for thousands of years. Different gods from their ancestry. Now they all have to be peacefully together under these different gods. So that's why they put all the gods, like America do. They give you all the gods you can worship. They let you worship Islamic, Christianity, Buddha, whatever. Just what Egypt was doing. They conquered, took over. Everybody want to live there. Put all your gods here. And you see, this stuff been done through the government. If you go through the documents, the government's controlling a lot of the stuff that they do, just as you see today. You need to see where they get their blueprint from. Then you go back to Mesopotamian records, and you find out they're getting a lot of it from there. But I'm about to get ready to close out, family. But whenever they speak of Egypt or Kemet, you can always come back to this video. Make sure you wrote it down. And just know it doesn't. That's why they keep telling you it starts in 2900. They tell you unification. They tell you peacefully. They tell you it was conquered. They tell you people was colonized. They try to hide what occurred because this is the blueprint America used. Many people use this blueprint. That's why the Bible says this place is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. And it's also called Babylon. Many of these kingdoms that's under this empire rule, called the Babylonian Empire. I like to give all. But But I like to give all praise to the Heavenly Father. Kahalam Yo. By the power of his word, I rock. Hallelujah, family.